Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of The Lighthouse. This movie is directed by Roger Eggers, who previously directed The Witch. This movie stars Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. The Lighthouse tells the story of two men in the late 1800s whose job is to care for and maintain a lighthouse on this island. They're stationed there for 4 weeks, and these men don't exactly see eye to eye. And when a really bad storm comes in spoiling their food, all they're left with is a whole bunch of alcohol and each other. And with both men seemingly hiding a secret, things get pretty intense. When I first heard about The Lighthouse, I was very intrigued considering the cast, the format of it being black and white, and it taking place in a lighthouse because you don't see too many movies featuring that aspect. Willem Dafoe is a great actor who's given us many different characters over the years, and I was curious to see how he would get along with a young actor like Robert Pattinson, someone who, as the main star, hasn't always delivered, but if you pair him with someone, he can give us some good performances. So I saw the movie, and this is one of those films that's really well done as far as the directing, the cinematography, and the acting, but it's got a lot of metaphors and symbolism, so I left the movie with a smile on my face, but still scratching my head. Alright, so because this movie only has two actors in it, everything I'm going to discuss is really shared by both men, both actors, both performances, shots, everything. So, Willem Dafoe. He is one of those actors, just like I said about Christian Bale in Ford vs. Ferrari, he's just great in everything. He's one of those actors where you're like, okay, I probably shouldn't say this, but I wonder if they're going to give a bad performance. Nope. Willem Dafoe, once again, ever since I discovered him in To Live and Die in LA, has just been awesome. It's really surprising that he hasn't won more Academy Awards and just gotten more mainstream roles because the guy can act. He plays Thomas Wake. He's the older of the two men. He's almost like an Irish pirate. He's like Quint in Jaws, if you will. He's the guy that's experienced, that knows how things are done, how things should be done, and he's the one that's always telling the tales, telling the stories, giving advice and suggestions on how things should be done, because he's seen and done it all. And Willem Dafoe has a great beard in this. He dresses like a captain. This movie has a lot of, sea tones, symbolism, and different things I'll get into later. If you've ever seen the painting of seamen, people that work on boats and stuff, you have the captain and then the guy in the yellow raincoat. Willem Dafoe is the captain here. He's really good. He's really intense in some scenes. He has the scenes where he's calmly talking to Robert Pattinson's character. But then there's a couple scenes where he's yelling and barking orders. And there's one scene that's, oh my gosh, it's really good. It's him looking down at Robert Pattinson, almost cursing him. He's just condemning him, and he's saying all these things about the sea. And it's just the way the scene is shot. It's shot from below Willem Dafoe, and you just see his face and his eyes while the background is, almost pitch black. It's a really good scene. And as I'm watching it, there's a lot of parts where Willem Dafoe is speaking and he's giving all these lines, and it's one take. And so I really appreciate that aspect of it, that he memorized all these lines, and he's just really good at his job. But like most Willem Dafoe roles, if you couldn't recognize him under the facial hair, he does the Willem Dafoe thing with his voice, where you know it's him because he has that thing, a lot like Nick Nolte does, where if you closed your eyes, you'd be like, oh, I know who that is because of the gravelly voice. And Robert Pattinson, he was surprisingly good in this role. When the movie starts out, Robert Pattinson's character of Ephraim Winslow, he doesn't say a whole lot. He's just the guy that keeps his head down and does his job. He's the worker bee of the film. He's the one that Willem Dafoe's Thomas Wake tells to do all these chores and does all this work for. And he doesn't say a whole lot, but when he does, when he starts opening up, when he starts getting angry, starts yelling, it's really good. And that's the second time I mentioned yelling because there is a lot of it. You're going to have these two men with tensions running high. And for me, a good sign of great acting is when men are arguing, when men are yelling, or when characters are emotional with each other. That's when you can tell good acting. For instance, in The Master with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix. Two men that are in these jail cells separated by bars, just yelling at each other, letting each other have it. Great scene. Or the scene in Born on the 4th of July with Tom Cruise and Willem Dafoe. Two men, face to face, yelling, screaming at each other. Really good acting. And so, Robert Pattinson is this man who works really hard for almost no gratification. Busts his hump for Thomas Wake, Willem Dafoe's character. A man who is frustrated, working really hard, but also, when he encounters certain things in the movie, his mind kind of wanders and his imagination takes over. Both men talk about their past, and Ephraim Winslow has a past that haunts him. And so, Robert Pattinson is really good in this role. He's the younger of the two actors, and it's just really nice to see these two men in these different phases of emotion. You have scenes where he's sad, scenes where he's happy and joyous, scenes where both men are just super angry at each other, to the point where things get dangerous. You have Robert Pattinson, who's this young guy who wants to learn more, who's had this life, who's seen most things, but not everything. He can still learn from Thomas Wake. He can learn from him, but also he's frustrated because there's things that Thomas Wake won't share with him involving the lighthouse. And I've got to say, aside from the acting, the shots in this movie are really well done. A lot of the shots are wide. Everything in frame is there for a reason, either to show you the scenery and how the characters interact with it, or to not show you enough, and so the audience, just like the characters, can discover things. One thing I really liked about this movie is that it's unexpected. And when I say that, I mean you don't know where the story is going. Whether it's a character imagining things, whether it's another character just saying sometimes random things or seeing certain things. The way the climate interacts, the way animals interact with the characters, even the way certain story elements unfold. There's a scene where Robert Pattinson is painting the side of the lighthouse, and there's something that happens that you don't expect. Yeah, there's things in the movie that garner laughs, but they're unintentionally funny. There's also things that happen where you're like, oh my gosh, did that happen? And then there's other things where you're like, okay, that was odd or a little uncomfortable or awkward, but let's see where the story goes. The movie keeps you engaged the whole time. Whether it's seagulls almost staring down Robert Pattinson's character, or it's a really bad storm that caused some things to happen, you're always engaged and you're always intrigued by what's going to happen next. The movie also has tons of symbolism about the sea. There's a lot of nods to religion, Christian religion, Grecian mythology, but also, tales of the ancient, the sea mariner. A lot of things involving the sea and the ocean. A lot of that comes from Thomas Wake's character, where he's talking about Poseidon and Neptune and this and that. And then you have Ephraim Winslow's beliefs and point of view. And so, if you look at the movie, there's a lot of symbols and metaphors about phalluses. If you look at the lighthouse, it looks like a certain thing. The movie's also about power and dominance. A lot of the shots are of one character who's below another, or one character who's above another. A lot of the shots are of rooms being divided by a column, or one character higher up than another. Not just in their duties, in their job, but just the way they're positioned. A lot of times, one character is above another. So because everything in this movie was really well done, the acting, the music, the cinematography, the fact that it was in black and white, and in and of itself represents something, but also makes the movie better. I don't think the film would have been as enjoyable if it was in color, because you would have been distracted by certain objects or things in the movie as opposed to focusing on the characters, their surroundings, the spacing. This movie is one of dominance, about manliness, about power, about madness, about the sea, about men and what drives them. So, because this movie is one of those that doesn't have a great story, but it still keeps you engaged, and it's one of those films that makes you want to chat about it afterwards with your friends, analyze it, dissect it, and watch it once again to understand it more, I'm going to give The Lighthouse an A-. This movie once again shows that Willem Dafoe is one of the greatest actors of all time, but also Robert Pattinson, he's becoming a good actor himself. So until next time, guys, see ya. Willem Dafoe's voice is so distinct. Ephraim, don't spill your beans. Out, am I? From Spider-Man. How did you say you got that? This place was a fucking bomb. From Boondock Saints? His voice is so distinct. I'm gonna get it.